Hey y'all. Hey everybody, my name is James and I am a Renaissance guy, and what that means is I like to do a lot of different things. And today I want to talk to you about this chicken coop. Where's my thumb? This chicken coop that's behind me and the mistakes I made when building it. I was real proud of myself when I put it together, and I've had chickens now for about 6 months, and I have come to learn that I maybe could have done things a little bit differently in some areas. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tell you about the mistakes that I made, and I'm going to then show you what I've done to fix those mistakes. And if you're interested in seeing my video in which I actually built the coop initially, I'll put a link for that down in the description so you can find that video. It's unlisted because I realized pretty quickly that some things about it weren't perfect and I didn't want to lead people astray. But if you're interested in seeing that video, I will put the link in the description. So anyway, let's talk about some of these mistakes so that if you are building your own chicken coop, maybe you will not make these same mistakes yourself. So let's get going. So first of all, I should explain that this coop is at the back of my yard and it's up above this retaining wall in this tall section. Oh, there's a little basketball hoop for my kids. So it's all good that it's up there. That has not been an issue itself. But the first problem that I would like to point out is, and here's some of my chickens down here saying hi, is that I left that space underneath. That area is open. And what that has led to, I guess probably pretty predictably, is that the chickens on rainy days especially, like today, are going under there to lay eggs. And there was one under there a minute ago. Ooh, the chicken is gone. But the egg is still there. So, and it's still warm. So anyway, they've been going in to lay eggs in there sometimes instead of using the nesting boxes, as well as some other places in the yard. So I will probably end up covering that up with some chicken wire. The next mistake that I will point out is that I spent a lot of time building this additional run out in front of it so that we could let the chickens out. They could have a little bit more space to run around and wouldn't necessarily be free throughout the whole yard where I thought they might get, more likely to get picked off by a hawk or disappear or something, who knows. But the problem is I made it when they were still little pullets and couldn't really jump up or fly very high. And I've since learned that these fully adult hens are able to easily fly over the 4-foot walls of this run. So that was a little bit problematic. I'm not sure if I'm going to fix that just because I just let them roam the yard now and that hasn't been an issue. But that is mistake number 2. Mistake number 3, and this is a little warning for you. It's kind of gross and very poopy. Mistake number 3 is a poop problem. So trigger warning, lots of chicken poop. So Saturdays are my day to clean out my coop, and it is currently Saturday, and I have not cleaned it out yet. So just something that I realized when I was building this coop, let's see if the light will adjust. Okay, it will a little bit. I put these roosting bars up here, which they do use, and they work very well. The problem is, you can see a little bit of chicken poop right there. The problem is I put these 2x4s flat so that when they do get poop on them, the poop just kind of sits on there. And if we go down to this bar down here, you can see that this bar is just covered in a very deep layer of chicken poop. And so they end up standing on that sometimes when they hop up to those upper bars to sleep at night. And so what I think I'm going to do, and also other than it being turned the way it is, also just the way the chickens position themselves on the upper bar, their butts hang out right over this lower bar. And so whenever they poop, it goes right onto that bar instead of down to the pine shavings below. So I'm going to readjust where this bar sits, as well as turning it sideways so it's a little bit lower profile so the poop can't collect on it. So that is mistake number 3. Now, mistake number 4 is a fairly wide-ranging mistake. And just to put it in brief terms, that mistake is weatherproofing. So I put this roof on it, put a slope on it, and I thought that would be fairly sufficient. And you know, in a light rain, it works fine. It also keeps the sun off of the inner portion of the coop. But in any kind of heavy rain, a lot of water ends up getting inside this coop, and the pine shavings end up getting pretty soaking wet. And I realized a mistake, you know, one of these mistakes. Not only is that the roof is just not big enough, it doesn't extend far enough out, also it doesn't extend over the nesting box. So the rain will land on the nesting box and will get into the nesting box. So I don't know if you can tell how wet these pine shavings are. Probably can't really tell, but they are pretty darn wet. And so the chickens just don't like laying their eggs in there. They would prefer a drier spot, hence going underneath the coop to lay their eggs. So the water ends up landing and it just kind of soaks through back here. Another mistake that I made when I built it is that I put the framing pieces, I framed the whole thing in 2x2s, as you can see, but I decided to put the panels inside the frame rather than outside the frame, which was a big mistake because I see now when it rains, I think a lot of the water collects here and gets in. There's nothing overhanging this particularly well. This is a drawer that can pull out all of the pine shavings. So anyway, the whole thing gets pretty wet when it rains. And then one other issue for the weatherproofing is, hello chicken, is these windows that I made, which work pretty well for ventilation and stuff. The problem is up here, I hook that hook and eye together to keep it open. But when it's open, it's actually up a little bit taller than level. It has backfall. So when it rains, and since the roof doesn't extend out beyond this flap, the water lands on that and rolls back in and then goes right in through that window. So what I'm gonna do is basically extend the roof. And that's the main thing I can do. I'm not gonna completely rebuild this thing and put the frame on the inside of those panels because that ship has sailed. But I think if I extend that roof, that will make a difference. So we'll see. And once I get that done, we'll complete this video. All right, so it is a few days later and I've made some changes to my coop and whatnot. And so let's take a look at those. But before we do, if you enjoyed this kind of video and would like more people to be able to see it, it would help the YouTube algorithm to subscribe and to like the video so that YouTube puts it in front of other people. It's weird how that works. But enough about that. Let's take a look at what I did and what changes that I made or didn't make. So the first thing I did, and here's another poop alert, is I adjusted the positioning of my roosts up here. So the top roost stayed exactly the same, but the two that are underneath it, I turned sideways on their edge so that the 1.5-inch side of the 2x4 is facing up rather than the 3.5-inch side. And as a result, a lot less poop collects on them. And then also this bottom one here, I moved over to the left a few inches. You can see the screw holes from where it was before, but I moved it over so that it is not directly underneath the butts of the chickens. So a lot less poop collects on there. I have not cleaned in here for about a week, and you can see just a little bit of poop has ended up on it, and that's a lot better than what it was before. So that's great. So that is change number one. Change number two, and this is the most substantial change, is that I added to the roof. So if you recall, originally I just had a plywood roof, and that plywood roof is still there. But the issue with that plywood roof was that it only extended about 3 inches out over the top of the coop, and so it didn't prevent water from getting into the coop all that well. So what I did is I put 3 2x4s across the roof and then put a plastic corrugated roof on top of that. And as you can see from looking at it, it extends about another 3 inches past the plywood roof on the front, on the side we're looking at here, as well as the back. And then over to the right, you can see that it extends over and about an inch or two past the edge of the nesting boxes there. And so when water runs off of that, it misses by about an inch or so. So the only way water gets in here now is not only if it's raining, but also if it's really windy. And we had a big heavy rain here, I think 2 days after I put that roof on. And really the only place that was getting wet was like, you know, an inch around the inside of the run, where water was kind of bouncing off the ground and into it. But it didn't get into the vent windows, it didn't get into the nesting boxes, and so that was a really great success. Also, as a result of that, I have decided not to cover up this opening at this time, because as soon as the nesting boxes were staying drier after it rained, the chickens stopped going underneath the coop to lay eggs and have gone back to laying eggs exclusively in the nesting boxes. So while they stay dry, the chickens prefer them over the other options. And so by virtue of replacing the roof, I actually fixed that problem as well. So I'm really excited about that. I haven't done anything about that extended run. Not sure if and when I will. I think I'll just stick with letting the chickens roam the yard for a while. But that is how things are right now. So I think these are some pretty big improvements to the coop, and really excited about how well that added roof worked. So if you enjoy this video, give it a like so that other people are more likely to see it. And you know, if you enjoy content like this, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. You know, talk to you later about another project.